Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and these amazing friends. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and ladies and gentlemen, this is the last Primetime Gaming of 2022, and it almost got fouled up thanks to YouTube changing my time. Thanks to Wandering Dutch, I was out in the Commons doing some shopping with Mrs. Boom, and she gets a notification that, well, Primetime Gaming is about to go live. And I'm like, oh my God. And you know what? I couldn't change it. I had to literally just let it go. I messaged the community. I tried to get into my YouTube studio. I couldn't make any changes. So a big shout out to the near 100 people that are already here. And when that show was originally going to start this afternoon, which of course was a mistake, there was almost 100 people waiting there. So I was concerned that people wouldn't come back, but I'm glad to see everyone already here. We have an outstanding show for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have three monster topics that we're going to get into. One of which, of course, is the advertisement. Good old Jimmy Lion Ryan two-tone, or speaking out the side of his mouth or his neck, depending on what part of the body you want to use in the conversation. He said some things originally that Game Pass was not a competitor, and he kind of changed his tunes to the regulators. Well, folks, you know what? He can get himself into some big trouble. We're going to get into what big trouble that could possibly be and exactly what he said in an internal questionnaire document that has leaked online. And, well, you know, those leaks, they're usually deadly. And for Jim Ryan, who we know is full of it does not make him look good. But you know who it makes it look worse for? Lena Khan and the FTC, who is their entire lawsuit to try and block this deal is basically bound in what Sony had to say about competition. It kind of makes them look a little foolish. Maybe they didn't do their homework or not. We're going to get into potentially Ryse Son of Rome 2 launching from Crytek. Well, they put some advertising, and what you see on the screen is what they used as the caricature for the job offering. And we're going to be talking about Justin Roland's interview with Larry Herb, and he said some really powerful things. Folks, I got to tell you, I think that if Microsoft has not already discussed it with them, they need to add Squanish Games to Xbox Game Studios forthwith. After the success of High on Life, to me, it's a no-brainer. Okay, Asante, we were talking about no-brainers. Sometimes the no-brainers Microsoft seems to miss. I hope they don't miss this one. But let's welcome in the panel here. Crispy Bomb. First of all, it's Crispy Bomb's birthday, ladies and gentlemen, and he is recovering from COVID. So he's here not only on his birthday, but he's here to hang out as he's recovering from I think it's his fourth bout with this thing. Crispy, how the heck are you, brother? And thanks for being here, dude.
Dude, yes, 4 times. I'm not joking with people. I had it January 2020 when it first came out. Didn't know what it was. That was the worst time I've ever had it. The only other worst time is when I've lost my taste and smell. And I was telling Boom in the green room, I actually got it back for a second. I got the smell back, and I was finding things that weren't there before. So, I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping maybe this will kick my my taste and smell back into gear. Other than that, I am off until next week because I'm forced to. So I am here, and we got some great topics. I mean, Jim Ryan, you are, basically Two-Face at this point. If you don't know who Two-Face is, I mean, go watch The Dark Knight, and that's probably the best iteration of it. Okay, go watch that. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's incredible thought process. Game Pass actually makes games, have a better audience. Oh, that's a hard thing to think about because we've been saying that for a while. These things are always fun, and it's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, brother. And yeah, we do have some really good topics that a lot of people are going to have big opinions for. Wandering Dutch, brother, you're back. You were also down and out. Thank goodness you and your lovely beard are back for everyone to hear. How the heck are you, brother, man? Welcome.
Yeah, I managed to. I wouldn't say completely recover, but recover enough to enjoy a Christmas dinner. So,
Oh, that's good, dude. Man, that's good. It always sucks
but
when you get sick around the holidays. It always seems like it waits for you. It's the worst.
I had a bad chest infection that
Mm.
seemed to disappear and then come back with a vengeance, just as they had broke up from work. So, not great timing. I've only just managed to get a little bit of video gaming in, so I'm starting to enjoy games a little bit this week. Thank
Okay,
God.
excellent. Well, listen, it's glad I'm glad that you were able to enjoy Christmas. I'm glad that you're back. Here to for everyone to to enjoy your banter and your opinions on what we're going to be talking about, and hopefully you'll be giving the peoples the information about what you're going to be doing next year in regards to the indie scene that you're going to be covering. I can't wait to be a part of that. That's been big, and each year it gets even bigger. Hopefully
Yes.
this year just it blows the doors off of your incredible indie coverage. But listen, thanks so much for being here. Hargeet Chani. Oh my goodness. We were talking in the green room and listen, I will say this that I've learned about Hargeet. When he laughs before he talks, folks, you look out because he is going to slam you with some knowledge. How are you, brother? Welcome.
I'm good. Yeah, it's been this is like the last week of my 6-week vacation, and I've been playing. Most of it ended up just being Halo and Danganronpa. So I finished.
Did you finally beat the
Danganronpa
third
Trilogy.
one?
I beat all 3 of them. Yep, and then I
Holy cow.
finished Scarlet Nexus right after it. So that I completed that one, and now I'm on to Marvel's Avengers, which so far so good. It's actually pretty good.
The story is fantastic.
Yeah.
The
I'm just playing the
Marvel's
campaign.
Avengers gets a tremendous amount of bad rap for
Yeah.
the dumb loot boxes, and some of the costumes are just egregious. And but the story itself ultimately is really, really good.
Yeah. So I'm like, I think about halfway through that one. But yeah, and hopefully I'll be playing a few more games before the vacation ends. So that's kind of where.
Did you ever play Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Okay, you did. That
way
was
back. Yeah, that was
incredible,
fantastic.
dude. Yeah, one of my favorite games of last year for sure. And Kay Asante, what's going on, brother? How the heck are you? You are still in a peaceful bliss. No kids. It's just you. You're chilling. You're playing games. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Good evening, everybody. Merry Christmas to those who I did not get a chance to talk to before. Happy birthday, Crispy Bomb. That's awesome. I know how it's like to be have a birthday adjacent to a to a holiday. So I hope you had a good time. No, I'm having a good time. As Boom has said, yes, I've been in tranquility for a couple of days. It's not going to last forever, but for now, I'm here and I'm doing well. Enjoying myself as you said, playing games. These days, I actually loaded up Miles Morales on PC. Oh boy, that game!
Oh,
is
nice.
amazing on PC. It is amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's one.
I've been
I
playing
love.
that.
I love my. Actually, I actually enjoyed Miles Morales. I know this sounds crazy for some. I enjoyed Miles' adventure even more than Spider-Man 2018.
Oh, 100%. To me,
for many reasons.
it's a cut above. It's a cut above.
Yeah.
When that music starts playing and he's in the subway,
Dude,
there's
what
not
an
a dry
opening.
eye in the house. It's a beautiful thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So speaking of dry eye, I'm not ashamed to say this. There's a particular part in the game. It's very early very early in where Miles comes home and
Yeah,
his mother's
the
house
Christmas dinner. Yep.
is like I don't want to get emotional in the air.
Yep.
It
Oh
is
yeah.
very, very reminiscent of my childhood when we used to go to Abuela's house on Christmas Eve. Like it was mandatory to be there. And I'm not just talking about one family, all families converge there. So when you see him putting the records on and you see the Boricuas, flags all over the place, and they're about to sit down, and you look at the dinner, and it's very traditional. For me, dude, straight up, I cried. Like I literally broke down because that's something we don't have anymore. Because the minute Abuela passed, it kind of shattered the family a little bit. So we didn't have those Christmas Eves. That is one of my favorite Insomniac experiences to this day. I absolutely love that game for that particular part, but the game itself was just fantastic overall. But
I completely agree with you. They really touched onto like some traditional stuff, and we have similar where you see it and you're just like, oh my god, they really they nailed it, right? They nailed it. They had me at the Timbos and the fade at the beginning. It was a wrap at that point.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, I'm here, and it's gonna be a good night. I'm happy to be here. Everborn Saga sends his late tardiness. He'll be here. Y'all can clown him when he gets here later.
Yeah, well, he'll get here just in time to clown on Jim Ryan, because I think that's
there you go.
That's probably the best thing that we could do, because quite frankly, he's a boob. But listen, I want to open up, folks, with Crytek. The game that you see on your screen, believe it or not, is running on a Series X and is from 2013. Right now, this may not be the greatest game of all time, but when I tell you this is exactly reminiscent of what a lot of the Sony fans love, that over the shoulder, that story driven, it's very, very real world detailed. I mean, yes, were there quick actions? Did you have to press a lot of X and a lot of Y to chop people's arms and heads and legs off? Yes, you did. But the fact that this is a game that launched on the Xbox One, folks, in 2013, it's nearly a decade old, folks. And it looks this good. This is not on PC. This is running on a Series X. Well, the reason why that's a conversation and it's a story today on this show, and I didn't see many people covering it. In fact, a lot of people took the last 2 weeks of the year off. I didn't want to do that because there was a lot of news that I wanted to cover. So I want to thank everyone that's here, especially if you're finding the channel for the first time. We're marching towards 12K. And we're not going to do it by the end of the year. We're, I don't know, 480 away or something like that. There's no way we get that many subs. But if you are finding the channel for the first time, I would really appreciate you consider subscribing. I do 5 live streams per week, all different shows, all different panels, all bigger and great opinions. We don't harp on negativity. We don't do the console war thing. We give our opinions on big news. So this particular topic for today to open up the show is about Crytek. And the reason why it's about Crytek is because they're the creators of Ryse Son of Rome. Now, this is an IP that I don't know who the current ownership of it is. I believe it's Crytek that owns it. It is a shame that we never got a sequel, because this story was opening up to a lot of the mysticism that comes with this, with this particular brand of game, very similar to God of War, and I couldn't believe that we didn't get one. Well, guess what, folks? We might just be getting one sooner than later, and here's why. Crytek put out a tweet the other day, and it opens up like this: 2023 is almost here. A brand new challenge awaits you for the new year. Crytek is hiring in almost every department, and with our global work from home program, it's never been easier to join our amazing family. Find all of our open positions at crytek.com/career. And what's interesting, folks, is the character that's on the right-hand side of the advertisement is from Ryse Son of Rome, and it says right on this advertisement, says we're hiring, and they're looking for design content creators, or audio technician designer, game data analysis, web designers. They're looking for cinematic animators, cinematic 3D modelers, environmental artists, and in the programming and engineering department, folks, they're looking for animation programmer, rendering engineer, UI programmer, senior.net, and application developer. Folks, this is basically telling us, at least in my opinion, and I of course could be wrong here, that this in fact could be the game that they're coming out with next, a sequel to Ryse Son of Rome, probably one of my favorite Xbox games. I don't want to say of all time, but it's certainly in my top 10. And again, like I said, what you see on your screen is a game that's nearly a decade old and looks this good. And that's why I love the Crytek engine. I want to start first with Crispy Bomb on this. Crispy, this is a game that a lot of Xbox gamers like myself have been asking for. Like, we want the Hellblades, we want the Fables, we want games comparable to The Last of Us and God of War and Horizon Forbidden West. We want those types of experiences on the Xbox, along with all of the amazing other experiences that we get. This seems to be one of those niche genres that are missing from the conversation. Do you want to see a Ryse Son of Rome 2? But here's the even bigger question. Does Microsoft drop the bag to keep this exclusive?
Oh man. I don't know. I don't know if they would say that right now. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those weird things where I think, you know, all the influx from what has been happening with Activision, they don't have much to say. And I think that's why, you know, you bring this news up. And if you really look at the greatest engines of all time, one of them is CryEngine.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you know, look at this game right now. If I had an Xbox One in 2013 and I played this game, I would be an Xbox gamer.
Yeah.
It was because of Gears, which was like a couple of years later when they finally released Ultimate Edition. But you look at, you know, Unreal Engine, you look at this, and you also remember that, I mean, if you really look at like Far Cry, like the OG Far Cry that was done on CryEngine, like there's a lot of games that really benefited from what they are doing and continue to do, and yet we don't hear about them, especially in the past couple of years. Yes, you have Hunt Showdown. That was the last game that was made in CryEngine. Okay, by Crytek, you know, partly. And it's one of those things like, you know, what can they do? If you've actually played Hunt Showdown for a period of time, it was not good online, but man, visually, it looked pretty damn good. So, you know, to, you know, take those mechanics that we've seen from Ryse Son of Rome and make them much better, and I think they know that, you know what I'm saying? And to have the possibility that they're, you know, going to take Microsoft money, you know what? That's where I say, hey, they got the money, invest. Here you go. Here's a franchise that didn't get enough love because you released a weak console. You released something that, you know, rubbed people the wrong way. We all remember this is how you share games.
Yeah.
Everybody remember that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
sure do.
And that's where we always give PlayStation crap because they continue to do it. They're doing it in a different way. Now they just want to take money from you and not acknowledge the fact that you are not happy. And if you don't, you know, talk with your wallet, they're going to be like, oh, it's fine. Everything's good. And you know what? You keep buying their games. You keep buying these remasters that are remakes, that are remasters, remaskers, as I like to call them. We're already seeing Last of Us 2 out there, aren't we? Already? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm not surprised if they remastered that one.
I thought we believed in generations, though. What's with that? Interesting. And you know what? You believe in generations, yet, you know, we get games that are up-dressed, you know, FPS is better, whatever it may be, and we get them for nothing on Xbox?
Yeah, for free. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm the poor people console. I've seen that on Twitter lately. Again, I mean, I'm sorry. I asked for the console that I have to do what I think is right. Okay. And you sit there like it used to be you buy a 360 game, that's what you get it on 360. You buy a Xbox One game, that's what you get it on. You buy, you know, a Sega Genesis game, you buy a Dreamcast game. Okay. These are all different. You're basically saying, I'm going to charge $10 to give you a little bit better graphics. I mean, it's not logical. So you look at what they've done with this game. This game on PC, I've heard, has still, like, if somebody doesn't have a good PC, still messes with their PC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay? Because the graphics are that good. The gameplay, I mean, I like parts
It
of
could
it.
be improved. It could be
I
improved.
like the execution part of it. I mean, I am a Gears player. Well, I'm just being honest. I do like the execution part of it because there's a lot of them. But at the same time, it felt, repetitive too many times when it was important. Like the executions were kind of easy. Like, you get some kind of indication.
Yeah, you
You
hit
know
the
what I
Y
mean?
or the X button, and you're chopping off arms and stuff.
And you do and then but like the rest of it felt very clunky. You know what I mean? Like when you'd block, like sometimes you'd be like, I didn't really mean to do that, yet you do it. And I've seen it, and I've done it, like you just sit there with the shield, like, and I'm like, no, I'm not trying to do that. Stop it. You know what I mean? So they need to work on that. I mean, if this is true, that's what you need. You could take the graphics you have right now. Look at this game. I mean, really look at it. Okay. I mean, this game looks better than Elden Ring. You could hate me for it, but yeah, it does. Sorry. And you could say, okay, make the mechanics better. And I think if they do that, and obviously they're gonna, I mean, they're graphic, juggernauts. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen the best from Unreal Engine, Sony, like Santa Monica, freaking Naughty Dog. Okay. And I've seen from Crytek. I haven't seen anything, crazy like Ninja Theory, but we don't have the game yet. I mean, yes, Hellblade, the original Hellblade is amazing looking, but it's not on this level. I'm sorry. Like if you really look at it, and the gameplay can be fun, but they added a bunch of stuff that had to do with the Kinect and stuff like that. And I think if they didn't do that, if they just went to straight gameplay, Ryse Son of Rome 2 would be an absolutely just stellar game to play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think you're onto something. Listen, I mean, you're right. The gameplay. Look, I'll say this, and I'm going to bring in Wandering Dutch in the conversation. Dutch, if you look at something like God of War 3, and then you turn around and you see the transition to what they were able to create with God of War 2018. God of War God of War 3 was, very samey in the way that he used the chains of chaos. A lot of the moves that he did were very just, they just came from God of War 1, God of War 2, God of War 3. I think there's something to be said about the changes that they made in 2018, which is how it became a masterpiece. And I think that you can see those very similar changes come the way of a Ryse Son of Rome 2. But the big question here is, this is known as a game. This game is known as an Xbox game, right? It has, now again, that might be, for or against, depending on whether you like this game or not. I love this game. I've beaten it twice, and I try to get into it, not just to record footage, but to play the game because I quite enjoy the story. At least once a year. This is a game that should be, if the sequel is to be believed, should be snatched up by Xbox. And this is one of those instances that if I had an opportunity to sit down with Phil Spencer, I would tell him Game Pass day and date is not enough for this game. That's just not enough here. You need to go and drop the bag and get this game. If there's a sequel to be had, make that sequel exclusive to Xbox. The original is exclusive to Xbox. This should, the follow-up, if it's true, and I believe that it is, this in fact should remain an Xbox exclusive because it's one of those games that Xbox players do not have. And yes, it's not first party. Those are coming. And we all believe, and we keep hearing that in 2023, the end year, we're going to get Hellblade 2. That's what we're all thinking. That's what we're all hoping. But I would love nothing more than to see a third-party game like this come the way of an exclusive. Do you think Microsoft needs to do this?
Yeah, well, it makes sense to. It makes sense to. If we have a look at, again, but this is another problem we've had recently, is if you have a look even at Octopath Traveler, which made its debut on actual consoles outside of Nintendo Switch
Right.
on the Xbox, and then of course Square Enix has put the second one as an exclusive to PlayStation and Nintendo, but then excluded Xbox entirely, which makes no sense. I have heard rumors though that Ryse 2 was in development quite a while ago, but it
Yes.
was scheduled to be multiplat. I do understand. To be fair, it makes more sense to have it as an exclusive or continuing it as an exclusive, because the game at this point, they're never going to port over Ryse 1 onto PlayStation. So it makes absolutely zero point in having the follow-up on PlayStation if they've never played the first one. In my opinion, it's a bit strange. Like having should we say, the second part of the story on there, but not having the first part of the story.
Yeah.
And then having to go back and play the game on either PC or Xbox, if they had access to it. But I don't believe this game's available on cloud, so you can't cloud stream it, which means you would have to natively have an Xbox or natively play it on PC. Yeah, it's a fantastic looking game. I've got it both on, we played it both on PC and on Xbox, and the only frustrating thing about the PC version is that, despite being the more powerful platform out of the two of the original, which was restricted to 900p, and the PC version, was pretty much a copy and paste version of the console version. There was no settings that allowed you to tweak the graphics. There was no settings that allowed you to tweak the resolution. So what you got on the console was essentially what you got on the PC, which was a shame, because I'd love to be able to max that game out and see just how good that engine could run on PC as well. So essentially, it's a beautiful game. It still holds up to this day. But when you're talking about Crytek and the Cry engine, those guys really know how to make a game look great. They always have done, and essentially always will do. They've thankfully been kind of supported by their government in order to get the company to a stable state now. But it's one of those companies that you always feel could do with being owned by a big first party.
I
company.
agree. Yeah.
It's they need that foot and they need that support, and I think with that support you have to have a look at the way that Microsoft have done things as well. Is essentially they've, much like the guys behind Psychonauts and those teams essentially that they've kind of worked with. They've essentially just brought them on board and said, you know what, just go do what you need to do. Here's the money. Need any support, let us know. Otherwise, see you later. And I think Crytek and CryEngine, as a platform and a publisher, both of those are one of those studios where essentially I would feel comfortable giving them the money, giving them the kind of the backing and the support, and just letting them crack on, because I think they'd make great games if they didn't have the worry behind them. But I agree. I agree from a selfish standpoint. That I think the second one does need to be exclusive. It's a bit like Order 1886. If there was a second version of that, Order 1887, I would fully expect that to be PlayStation exclusive and hope it would be. It was the Order, much
one
like
of
Ryse.
the most underrated PlayStation 4
Oh,
games,
absolutely.
dude. I
Absolutely.
loved every
I put-
minute of that game.
I put both Ryse and 1886 in the same category. They're both highly underrated games. Yes, they
Yep.
both had their flaws at this time, but in terms of what they did from a visual perspective and actually showing what the consoles were capable of when they launched, both Order 1886 and Ryse both did that for the respective platforms. And I think going forward, Ryse needs to be another showcase piece for the Xbox.
Yes.
The Order needs to come out again as a follow-up and be a showcase piece for the PlayStation. Take notice of the gripes that people had from the launch on the Xbox One, where we said, okay, there's far too many quick time movements, as you see on screen now, where you've got like press X and then press Y and then press X and then press Y. Like, take note of that stuff and work on it. Take note of the combat and work on it. In terms of its visual fidelity and its storytelling, it was brilliant. Like, the storytelling was great. It was a really good story. The combat needs some refinement and maybe enhance the world a little bit more. But other than that, they had something great going on. And it was the same for the Order. The Order had some issues with the AI, where the AI was a bit stupid with the enemies and things like that. But outside of that, the level of fidelity and the storytelling in that game, that was brilliant. So yeah, I think both The Order needs to come out on the PlayStation, the new version of it, and be another showpiece. I think the same for Ryse. I think it should be that showcase piece for the series consoles, and saying, right, okay, this is CryEngine really giving it what it's got, and this is what Ryse Son of Rome 2 looks like and can be. So yeah,
hey Dutch.
Yes,
I'm just looking at this gameplay, and I haven't played this since 2013.
Yeah,
this doesn't look very far off from some of the games that are getting
out
nominated
now
for Game of the Year these days.
Yeah, I agree.
I
just,
can see that.
I just find that super interesting.
Well, I agree. There's a lot of movement and things like that. That's very similar. But again, it's I would say that's just hats off to the guys behind at Crytek and CryEngine. Like the phenomenal work that they'd managed to pull off at that time. And yes, it got slandered for 900p, but let's face it, it's still at its resolution gate, which was like 180p between consoles. I mean, you literally can't tell 180p between. I'm sorry, you can't.
No,
but they claimed you could. The difference that made was ridiculous. It was literally just overshadowing what was a great game, what was a great launch game. So, yeah, Boom, to answer your question, absolutely, it needs to be exclusive going forward. And I think a little bit of backing from Microsoft would absolutely do them no harm. I think it would be great for the studio.
Buy Crytek is what I say.
yeah, I like that even better. I like the buy Crytek.
Yeah, I do that.
Harky Chani, brother, let's get you in on the conversation. But before I do, let me catch up on 2 super chats. Highlander 001, generous friend of the program, drops a $2 super chat and says, "Happy birthday, Crispy Bomb. Hope you get well soon." Thank you so much for that. Drawn TJ, another generous friend of the program, he drops a $2 super chat and says, "Hi, everyone. Hit the like button." Yes, I definitely appreciate that. But Hargeet, look, you know, Santa and I were talking on the phone this afternoon, and we said, and I think it's we can say this wholeheartedly. Sometimes the Microsoft or the Xbox no-brainer moves, they blunder. And listen, folks, you know, I clown on PlayStation when they make stupid mistakes. I got to give the righteous smoke to Xbox when they make theirs. And one of the things they seem to drop the ball on are deals or things that seem to be no-brainers. People that are making 6-figure salaries just seem to drop the ball when it comes to these kind of things. I don't know what the money situation would be to lock up Ryse Son of Rome 2, but it's one of those games that I think is an absolute must. You know, I understand, you know, like, and I've said this before, Hargeet, that the true exclusive is Game Pass, because as Game Pass subscribers, we get a chance to go and play a game that we may or may not have liked or even bothered to look at, but it's in Game Pass and we play it. But there are some exceptions to that rule. This is one of those games that are missing. This type of genre is missing from the menu of this of Xbox, and I think that they need to address it not only through first party, which they're doing. They need to address that through third party. This is a game that has only seen life on the PC and the Xbox. That is where it should stay, and Microsoft should pay for it. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing with Crytek is it doesn't exactly have a lot of games that it can, you know, sustain itself with.
Right.
So the fact that it kind of is hungry for money makes it kind of easy for Microsoft to come in and do that, right? There's no reason they shouldn't. You know, this is kind of like somewhere around the 2010, 2011 mark, all the way through about 2017, 18, when Microsoft decided they couldn't invest in anything. You know, they missed out on a lot of things, including, say, locking down Mass Effect. That should have been an exclusive to Microsoft. The first one was, and then they let it lapse. And there was no reason for that, except they didn't want to invest, right? This is the same thing. There's no reason they shouldn't have invested. Now, there might be some bad blood that happened there. I'm not sure. I remember some rumors about something with, you know, Ryse Son of Rome and Microsoft. But put that all behind us, let's say right now, they certainly could use some funding. The last couple of games they've made, there's that Hunt game, but there's also a bunch of VR games. I'm sure they were drawing a lot of money with that. I'm of course just like joking there. They couldn't have possibly made a lot, right? Because the market's too small. So they could use some help making a game. They're making a Crisis 4. I think that's been announced, right?
Yes, that's confirmed. Yeah.
And that I assume will be multi-plat. I don't know if they have the funds, or I guess Modern Industrial was saying maybe the government's helping them out. If that's what they're doing, that's fine, right? At least they'll have some way to pay those people, make the game, and hopefully recoup that. But to make this, Microsoft should just go there. The other thing they should do immediately, and to me anyways, is remaster it. Remaster this thing, put it in Game Pass, right? Get it up to the 4K. There's zero reason not to do that, right? The assets already look freaking amazing, right? How much could it be to up-res that a bit? Get it out, get the 4K 60, put it in Game Pass, PC and Xbox. Get that done, and it's got to be short money. Like they can sustain a little bit of Crytek's normal business by doing that, and then pay for getting the next one done. And as you said, the thing that sustains all this is Game Pass, right? Game Pass is a content need system, and this is content. It's perfect content that was already exclusive to the platform. Why not? Why not expand it by adding another to it and bring that game, give it more breathing room to be able to do more things with it, right? They should be able to invest enough to be able to get something cool with it. It already had a good basis. It just kind of, I don't know, it seemed kind of like it ran out of ideas or something. I don't know. It was not enough, but it did kind of do its thing. But they could make it better, and the next one could add on top of it. I don't know if it's going to be the same, storyline or something maybe different somewhere else, whatever it is, but they could definitely do something with this. So I think they should continue it. Why not? It's not like Microsoft shouldn't have third-party deals because they're buying first-party studios. They should absolutely do third-party deals. They let Dead Rising, they let that go too, right? The whole time that like short time, they've really let a lot of things go, which was stupid, but that's what happened, right? They did not invest, and they let a lot of these things go to other platforms. So I mean, they have an opportunity here. Why not? Right. That studio doesn't make a lot of games. So if they want to fund it, why not? Let's fund it. Let's get something going. Right. So it makes sense. Now, from a Crytek perspective, if they have the funds to do it themselves, for them, it's better to be multi-plat because they would get more customers,
of course,
get more revenue, right?
Yeah.
But again, the thing that fixes that is Game Pass. Game Pass can just fund it and just put it in Game Pass. Even if it were multi-plat, I don't think it should be, but even if it were, they could still help fund it by putting it in Game Pass, right? Make it day and date, and suddenly you've got some money to actually do the development of it. But I would like them to start locking some of these things down. Like this is a Xbox associated game. Yep. Why not just make it an Xbox associated? Thankfully, they did that with Gears, because that could have gone too, right? That could have totally gone. They could have still, let Epic go do whatever they want with it. But they decided, fine, no, we're going to buy that and take the IP and make it an Xbox IP.
There's a version, to your point, Hargy, real quick. There is a PlayStation version of Gears 1 floating on the internet somewhere.
Yes, there is.
People still kind of keep referencing, but you'll never play it.
Yeah. They ported it through PC. It's been ported.
But so I think they should do this. Why not? And they probably have already talked in the background. That's why you're seeing these job postings, stuff like that, right? That, if they've secured funds, they're going to go get the talent and start making the game, right? So I don't know if it's already in development or if it's now starting development, but it would make sense. Why not, right? Let's go ahead and do the third-party deals, right? And get this game going, right? And, see if we can bring this back. Why not? I like it.
I'm right there with you. Real quick, I have to catch up with Super Chats. First of all, I missed the first one of the day from Highlander01001. Thank you for the heads up. He drops a very generous $5 Super Chat and says, evening, everyone. Love to get Jim Ryan under oath in front of a judge. Watch him sweat under questioning. The Sony Salt will be epic. Yeah, he would be sweating bullets, no doubt about it, because he's a liar. And we also have Angry Hippie. I love the name, brother. Hopefully you're not that angry. Welcome to the show, dude. He drops a very generous $5 Super Chat and says, "Can it run Crisis was my favorite achievement until Fallout doesn't let you do this." He's talking about the achievement for stabbing one of the NPCs in High on Life, which we're going to talk about in a second. That was a great achievement, absolutely. But Keisante, look, I mean, everyone seems to be on the same page here. Where do you fall? Because you and I were talking, and this seems to be a kind of a no-brainer. I like I said, I get it, folks. You know, locking up exclusives costs money, but didn't we just learn that Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy 16, the one with
permanent exclusives,
permanent exclusives, followed by Silent Hill 2 remake, permanent exclusives.
Hey,
folks.
didn't Phil Spencer tell you they do their business differently than Sony does their business?
They do, but sometimes you gotta
in the best look of Microsoft. You know?
Yes. Sometimes you gotta fight fire with fire.
So in my opinion, basically, it is true that I also agree with everybody, obviously, on this panel, you know, but context matters, right? History matters. The history on this game, as has been pointed out by some in the chat, this was a Connect game that they eventually went, you know what, this actually is far more than what Connect can handle. Let's broaden it out and make it actually a full-fledged game. Much like, and people clown it because of that. But, you know, one of the most successful games that used to be one game that pivoted to another game, Fortnite, same idea. It was a game meant for A. They recognized that B was successful, so they pivoted full forward towards B. You know, so you know, and clearly, and I think I've seen some interviews with some of the devs. They didn't know how great of a game they had until they were laid down the path. So some of those decisions that they'd made that you guys seem are repetitive and whatnot, they went, you know, we'll have another stab at the apple. Yeah, good luck with that, right? So that's unfortunately where it stood. And this was at a time when Microsoft was having a hard time getting developers to actually make games for them, right? You guys have actually already pointed it out. There was a time where every time a Microsoft third-party deal was made, they allowed the developer to keep the IP. Hence, Ryse Son of Rome staying with Crytek. Yep. Hence, Sunset Overdrive staying with Insomniac. That was the only way you could get them to do it. And then the second time they need to do
Alan Wake.
Exactly, Alan Wake, right? After the first one is a spark, and then the second one could potentially fix and really solidify. At that point, the devs or maybe budgets, they'll say, well, we don't have enough money, and there goes that idea, right? It happened over and over and over again, right? But I do agree that Microsoft should potentially look at them because they are like geniuses. Like it's amazing how much short shrift Crytek gets, because truthfully, yes, they haven't really showed that much as far as different kinds of games that they make and whatnot. But we do realize that Crytek was the one studio that put ray tracing on Xbox One X, right? Like they used their software engine to put ray tracing in Crysis Remastered. So on the One X, you could do ray trace reflections. Like Crysis, like Crytek is amazing at their engine. The stuff that they can do is next level. Absolutely. It's just like they've never been able to really strike that zeitgeist and get the funding and to be an established brand as I think they deserve to be. The Order 1886 comparison is very apt. Unfortunately, you know, I don't think we'll ever see that. Well, SIE smartly owns that IP, so maybe Sony will just say, hey, let's find a different studio to do it. The company who made it, of course, is Ready at Dawn, who now makes VR games for Meta, because they now are owned by Meta, right? But I actually recently played the Order 1886 recently, and it still really, really, really holds up, right? My issue is, and you and I talked about this, and for those who don't know, Crytek was almost closed not too long ago. They couldn't pay their people. You know, they've been on the brink for a while now, right? And their most recent game was not actually Hunt Showdown. Yes, it was their new IP. The most recent outing was all the remakes of Crysis. Yeah, they've remade 1, 2, and 3, right? Now, do I think Microsoft will do it? That's the question, right? Like, we're in a world now where Microsoft keeps coming out and saying, well, we knew that was a mistake we made. Does that mean you won't make another one? Will you guys, you know, actually, you know, Uncharted 2 to Uncharted 1? They still have not shown that they can or will do that. Besides Senua's Sacrifice, right? Senua's Saga, I should say, we don't know what their procedure is now for second bites at the apple, right? They've never done it successfully. We're hoping that this time around they'll change their ways. But yeah, unfortunately, they've shown these companies that they may not necessarily be the one to bet on if you're trying to get a franchise started. That's just not Microsoft's way. They'll buy you once you're established, but to give you the spark to potentially establish one yourself, that has proven in the past to be beyond what they want to do from a budget perspective.
Well, they have a couple though, right? Like Ori, for instance. Dead Rising.
Well, but Ori also ended the way Ori ended. There's never going to be another Ori.
But we got two
Go
of
ahead,
them.
Crispy.
id Tech, like they have, dude, like ID Software. Wow. Dude,
yes,
dude, Doom Eternal.
Yes. How long have they
Doom
owned
Eternal?
We still haven't seen much from them besides
Yeah,
Doom
dude,
Eternal, which was already in the middle of it, right?
Technically they were buying them during that, like they
Sure,
saw
yes,
that before it was announced.
Well,
and they
I
were
guess
like,
my point, the point I'm making is the jury is out on whether that has changed at Microsoft, right? We haven't seen it yet.
So here's the thing. I want to push back a little bit, Mr. K.
Sure.
Asante.
Yeah, I want you to push back.
Did we say happy birthday? Because I came in late. Did we say happy belated birthday to this
that
gentleman?
has passed and moved on. We
right.
have moved on.
It's
the grades
not
are still growing. Keep going.
All right. So anyway, I think that Microsoft in general they're not really in the business of taking ownerships of developers' IPs. And I think developers would prefer to work with that. And what they lost in the last generation is market share. So it unfortunately didn't make financial sense. And I think part of the reason Sony is so scared about scared is the wrong word, but they don't want the Activision deal to happen.
No, I get that.
Well, let me finish the thought. So they know that Microsoft with the stronger market share would be preferred by developers because of sort of the draconian tactics that Sony uses. So I don't know if the answer is necessarily they need to take IPs away from
no one said they
developers
should.
just because
that was not the point. The point is whether whether you know the context or not. That is the reason why all of your favorite Sparks never got second outings, because they weren't not in the business of funding them. And the only reason why initially they were even getting those first outings in the first place is because they were offering those IPs to the developers rather than keeping them, which was the norm at the time. Right. That's all I'm saying. Hargeet was saying that from a business perspective, they should remaster it. I can see that happening. I think he's onto something there, but that will also most likely lead to this game coming to PlayStation. They will if this, and more often than not, I suspect that they're right in this. People are going, oh, Crytek is using Ryse Son of Rome as a marketing tool. Is that just they found some art somewhere, or are they actually saying something? I actually think they're saying something. They may very well be bringing this IP back, but like you guys are saying, unless Microsoft comes at them, which I'm not sure they will. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not sure they will. They will multiplat this thing because they need to make that money. And when they do, the first smart move to be made would be to remaster this thing, because like Hargeet said, there's a lot already done here. This game was already almost future-proofed in its asset creation and all of that. And the hardware limitations was a sign of its times. They can easily resolve that now and bring this to all platforms. I bet you if you see Ryse 2, you will first see a remastered Ryse 1 that goes everywhere to solve those small issues. Maybe a modernization from a combat perspective, and then clean up the rest of it. It will be far less work than doing all other remasters, because this game is already halfway there, right?
Well,
but I suspect when you see that, you will see that come to everywhere, including PS5. Go ahead, Crispy. You were saying something?
The one thing I look at, and you could see it from the gameplay, the animations, which, realistically, like when he runs, like it just seems annoying.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
well, because they had a resource budget and they spent it very wisely, right? That's why it looks as good as it does, but the combat is a little simplistic. They spent their resource budget elsewhere rather than maybe putting a bit more systems into the combat. But clearly, by all our adulation about this game, what they did was good enough to where it warrants another stab at it, right? And now, obviously, the resource overhead is way higher with the consoles now, so they could potentially keep the good looks while adding more complicated combat.
Then you see what just happened. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things that it almost feels like God of War at times. Like people are clamoring for God of War, either of them. And you really look at the quick time events, they're very seamless. If you screw up, you're screwed. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where it keeps you engaged. And I feel like they missed the mark on certain aspects. But also I blame Connect. And I think now they're focused. I mean, that's where everybody's like, oh, he promised high fidelity VR. And I go and say, no, I want him to make really great games. Like I do enjoy, single player games, but how good is it? Like, does it keep me engaged? Is it just constant quick time events? And you can play this game without doing any of those. And that's what I enjoy. You know what I mean? Like if you don't do that, like you can still kill the NPC. And it's one of those things like, they were close to having something amazing, but at the same time, all the stupid BS that was involved in 2013 really killed the game. Because if you really look at the reactions to people that saw this game on the Xbox stage, they were like, wow, this thing looks amazing. And then it got completely null and void with the DRM talk and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Get your,
you're right.
Xbox needs to look at that and say,
that is ultimately the point I'm trying to make. There are certain no-brainers that you think that, hey, it's in the bag. We shouldn't even think about it. But they have proven that they think else. I'm not saying they're wrong necessarily, because there's always extra information that we are not privy to, right? But to assume that Crytek will to assume that Microsoft will give them the bag for part 2, there may be more to it than that. And I suspect that we as gamers should be happy that this may return, but it will most likely return as a multiplat. I think. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I agree with you all that in that world of association where, this is associated with Xbox, this is associated with PlayStation, this is definitely an Xbox associated game. But because they did not make the right decisions with this thing, at least from our perspective, the first time around, I suspect that Crytek has kind of shaken themselves out of that almost being closed place that they were. And now they're like, nah, man, we need to make our money where we can make our money. I suspect you will see this as a multiplat. If there's a remaster, which I really think there probably will be, you will most likely see this everywhere.
The only pushback I could give is, has Square learned from this? Because
but Square is not Crisis, Square.
Yeah, but Square is Final Fantasy, and everybody loves Final Fantasy.
Sure. That is true. Yeah.
No, I mean,
but listen, so far, Square hasn't. Crytek hasn't proven to make those weird decisions that Square makes. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Is a company that's on the brink of extinction, and what's going to happen after the ABK deal is ultimately done. You're going to hear Sony's going to announce that they're buying them. That's ultimately what's going to happen, because to have the next 4 games literally blocked from Xbox says that they're eventually going to be first party, and at that point, who cares? Whatever. The only thing I'm going to buy out of the list of 4 games that they have coming out is going to be Silent Hill 2, because I love Silent Hill 2. I think it's the pinnacle game in the series, and even though Bloober Team has not done the greatest in their last couple of releases, I think because they're getting help from the producers that worked on the original Silent Hill 2, the game is a blueprint. They just have to make the game based on what they have in front of them. I don't think Konami is going to allow this game to be like the Medium. I don't think it's gonna be like the Blair Witch. I think it's going to be a full on. At least I'm hoping Resident Evil 2-esque remake, where we pop it on and we're like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. And yeah, sure. Would I rather play it on my Xbox Series X? Absolutely. But I'm not going to miss that game because it's exclusive to the PlayStation 5. I will buy the game there
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. But listen, let's get everyone saga, and I'm going to get into this Jimmy Boy Ryan, or whatever you want to call him, Lion Ryan, Crying Ryan, whatever. He is
Something.
he is something, folks. When I look at him, I think of like Dirk Dastardly. You know, remember Wacky Racers, the guy with the big mustache, the evil guy? That's Jim Ryan, folks. And if you remember that, you're as old as I am. So good on you for that. Everborn, does Microsoft drop the bag on Ryse 2? Can they? You know, with potentially some bad blood. Does money will money make all of that go away?
Well, so I don't know. I don't specifically remember. And you, again, I came in a little late. Maybe you guys talked about this, but if memory serves me correctly, there hasn't been anything really on the board about bad blood between Crytek and Microsoft. Not in the same way you hear the little sniping that comes from Remedy. Or some or the Moon Studios or anything like that. And Microsoft has traditionally allowed developers to keep their IPs, but they have also held publishing rights on a lot of them, right? And a lot of them needed to get Microsoft's sign off to go and publish somewhere else, even if they didn't need their sign off to develop a thing. And I suspect part of the reason we haven't seen Ryse come back yet is because Microsoft hasn't, kind of signed off on it coming back yet. I don't know that Crytek can probably release a Ryse without Microsoft. Maybe they can. I'm just saying I haven't heard any evidence to show that. And the fact that it has not come back yet, absence of evidence of absence, whatever. But I say all that to say, I think if Ryse comes back, it's absolutely an Xbox exclusive. I think they used the picture of Ryse because people have been talking about Ryse fondly. Yep. But if it is Ryse that they're making, I would be shocked if it was not an Xbox exclusive. I'd be shocked. Sorry. Not to like be in acquisition talks, but I do think the way Microsoft justifies all of this is Game Pass, and that is what allows them to greenlight a second outing. And I know they own Ninja Theory, and that's why we're getting what do you call it, 2?
Hellblade 2.
Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
But I think they would see the value of this going in Game Pass, even though the first one didn't do numbers. It's basically achieved cult classic status at this point.
Yep.
And it would be a big bang. And again, it fills a hole in the portfolio. So I think just the allure of having a high profile AAA title, you put Crytek on it, that visually it's going to stand up next to anything anyone in the industry is doing if you put today's hardware with Crytek's talent.
Well, real quick, Everborn, just to add a little filler to it, you said you weren't sure. I sent you a link in the DM right now. 2014, the CEO of Crytek was officially in public unhappy with the sales on Xbox One and said specifically that the next one would be multi-plat. He specifically said that. Like,
I think
he was interviewed.
It was something along those lines. There was and publishing rights. I think something you're on there to that as well, everyone. That there might be some,
there's questionable publishing rights, but they own the IP. Crytek owns the IP.
Well, I don't think them
much
owning
like
the IP was
much like what do you call it? Yeah. You guys just said it before. Much like Ori, it can't be made without Microsoft expressly publishing it.
I think Ori, they
allowing for it to be published. They own the IP, but not the publishing rights.
Right. I think you're talking about Cuphead.
Cuphead, right? They did not own the IP. But I think in
Yeah.
Ori's case, they actually own Microsoft bought the IP. I think they own
Oh, okay. Apologies.
they
I
couldn't
mean,
fund it otherwise.
in the Ryse case, they own the publishing rights, but not the IP.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that all that being said, I think 2014 is a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Almost
True.
a decade. Yes. 8 years.
And I think with what Microsoft's offering today, I think in the standing today, what was said and what was felt in 2014 may not still be the case, right? Microsoft made a lot of questionable decisions around that time, and I could understand developers not being happy, and I could understand putting all this work and basically your title being dragged down because it's associated with Xbox, because that's what happened to this title, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I could picture you being upset, not to mention, hey, we want you to make this game for us. We want you to make it be a Connect game. We're paying for it. Oh, by the way, we don't want that anymore. And now we're going to tell you to do something different. So I get all that, but I just think it's a different day. And I think if this comes out, if that's what we're in fact talking about, I think it's Xbox exclusive.
No, you're right. Phil Spencer wasn't the decision maker at the time.
Right.
It was the other guy, as we all famously know. So,
Mhm.
that
And I'm
does
sure
matter.
Phil
That
is
does
tired of
factor in
being
the equation.
asked about Ryse. He's probably asked about Ryse more than he's asked about Conquer. Right?
Or
So-
yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
So
Well, we know who should make the next Conquer, and that's Squanish Games. But
Right.
that's a
it
topic
would
for
be
another
a
show.
colossal mistake, and it would be purposeful if they did it.
Yeah.
They would do that and say we don't care. And I don't think that they're that stupid. So,
Yeah, it might come down to timing, right? So I think
Yeah,
it's not that
another
you're
thing.
saying maybe the next one would be multi-plat, and they've already started working on it, and they already made those deals like in 2016 or 17 before Microsoft could actually go in and do any investment, right? In that case,
that's if it's that close, though, right? I don't think those
Yeah.
deals are finalized yet. Just like Starfield, right?
Yeah,
Starfield was going to
it
be
may or
on the
may not be.
PlayStation.
That's
know what I'm
fair. But in the case of Bethesda, they have this constant revenue stream from other publishers, and Skyrim just kept selling and selling and selling, right? Whereas Crytek, they don't have a lot, right?
They don't.
So
They
for
don't.
them, the outside investment really helps to make that game happen. So
like
I
that
don't know.
Game
That might
Pass
already
guy.
have happened. I don't know, right? So to Sante's point, that might be the thing. Maybe they already did a deal somewhere, and now we're starting to see the game maybe is halfway done or something like that. We don't know.
Well, you know what?
I could see
Only-
them taking the Game Pass back. That's the last thing I say.
Yeah, that
No,
would
no,
be
it-
definitely
it-
the way to go. Is the Game
Yeah,
Pass thing
to
for
be-
Microsoft, right?
I
So
mean,
that's how
I
you
think
get
we
it.
all agree. Even if it's
Yeah.
not exclusive, Game Pass bag is
Yeah.
that once again no brainer.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, this
It
this
is,
studio,
well-
publisher studio, whatever you want to call it, is not very expensive. Tencent was trying to buy them a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever, for
Yeah.
300 million euros. So they're not that expensive if they wanted to pick them
Crytek?
up. So I don't
They're
think
trying to
Tencent
buy
was able to
Crytek?
buy them. Yeah,
Yeah.
Crytek.
See, if that would have happened, I'd be very sad. Crytek has such amazing technology. They
What
really
would be
should
worse,
be
though?
brought back into
Crystal, Xbox losing Crystal Dynamics or Crytek?
I you know,
CD.
yeah.
That's
I'm still
tough.
gonna say it's Crystal D. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? And
CD, yeah.
Eidos Montreal, but
Exactly, because you get more IPs,
you,
right?
you get two seasoned development houses that do games that are missing from Microsoft's repertoire, and that's third-person story-driven games. Crytek would be great for the technology aspect. I think their tech is just next level. Look at the perfect example. And the game is almost a decade old, and this looks as good as God of War Ragnarok. Sorry, I had to say it, but it does. This looks as good as God of War Ragnarok. It absolutely does. And that's not a slight on God of War. It is roses for Crytek's engine, because this game was an Xbox One game. Just look at it, folks. Just watch it. But look, we got to get into the big topic. I thought we were going to be able to get to 3. I thought we were going to have a smaller panel. I thought some people weren't going to be here. But you know what? It's okay, because the one that we're going to talk about is what people are here. I pulled a report from Windows Central. Now, obviously, I will say this with confidence. When Windows Central puts out an article, I read it verbatim, back, forth, up, down, left, right, BA, select, start. I do it all because I want to know what I'm talking about. but more importantly, I trust the reporting. Now, this was posted and written 3 days ago by a good friend of this community, great friend of this particular channel, Jez Corden, one half of the Xbox 2 podcast with the great Randall Thor 19. And in the title, report, despite public fears, PlayStation lead Jim Ryan doesn't see Xbox Game Pass as competition. He goes on to say, as the opening salvo, Sony's Jim Ryan shared private comments downplaying Xbox Game Pass's viability according to a new report. And here is what we have in front of us, folks. The report suggests that Jim Ryan may be misleading regulators with Sony's position on the deal. If true, Ryan reportedly downplayed Xbox Game Pass in an internal Q&A with PlayStation employees, which would be embarrassing for the FTC, whose entire lawsuit hinges on the idea of Xbox Game Pass hurting PlayStation. He goes on to say in the article, folks, Ryan reportedly responded to questions about Xbox Game Pass dismissively. When we can, and this is Jim Ryan speaking, and I quote, "When we consider Game Pass, it seems to be getting lower Game Pass numbers. When we consider Game Pass, we've also sold more PlayStation 5s in 2 years than they have gathered subscribers, and they've been doing it for 6 and 7 years." He goes on to say, if accurate, this episode further backs up Microsoft's previous claims that Sony is attempting to mislead regulators. The FTC has placed a large amount of emphasis on developing markets in its current regulatory ideology, blocking Meta, Facebook from acquiring VR companies in an attempt to smite its growth, despite the fact that few others are investing in this tech. He goes on to say, finally, for Sony's Jim Ryan to claim privately that Xbox Game Pass isn't truly competition for PlayStation just adds further fuel to the idea that the FTC's position is completely unattainable and driven by poisonous cocktail of ignorance and ideology. Holy shit. Talk about someone dropping the gauntlet on Lena Khan's-led FTC. Listen, I'm going to go first here to Card Geek Johnny because he's been chomping at the bit to get into this. Listen, if there's one thing that we can all not only admit, but I think it's safe to say, Jim Ryan is a liar. Jim Ryan is misleading.
It's his middle name, Boo.
Yeah, yes. Well, it is Jim Lying Ryan, or Dance Moves, depending on if you're King David or not. His name gets longer and longer. It's Lying Dance Moves Ryan. I don't know what's going to be next. Maybe it's going to be Two-Tone, Johnny Two-Tone. I don't know, but Hargeet, I'm going to say this. This report from Windows Central is something that I put some serious oomph to because it's Windows Central. And Jez Corden doesn't make mistakes. He would not have written this if he didn't have firm belief in what he was writing. And this does not only make the FTC look even more foolish than they already do, this makes Sony look even more pathetic than they have appeared to regulators about how they can't make a game as good as Call of Duty and how that Game Pass was going to be the end-all destroyer of gaming as we know it. What are your thoughts on this report, man?
Does it surprise anyone? Everything they've been saying, like, we can read between the lines. It's all obviously hyperbole, right? They're just trying to play it up that this is the end of the world for them. The end is nigh. If Microsoft were to buy Activision, Sony cannot survive. That's patently absurd. It's just ridiculous. They're obviously going to survive. They'll be fine. It won't, they're still putting Call of Duty on there, even if they didn't. Right. All that would happen is Call of Duty would lose its market share. That's the whole, Call of Duty is good because it's everywhere. Right. And that's why it has a market share. That's why it has so many players. Right. If it suddenly said, no, we're not going to be on this, it would just lose its market share. That's what would happen. People would go find something else to play. Somehow this one game is the end of the world. No, it's because it happens to be a lot of money for them. And Jim just looks at the bottom line. He just looks at money. Right. That's all he's looking at, not fun, not playing, because he doesn't play games. So he doesn't care about that. He's just looking at, I get a lot of money when Activision puts this game on my console, and I get the marketing rights. So that's all he's looking at. So is he lying? Of course he is. Right? But the other part of this is, at what point do you have to talk to your shareholders and say, well, publicly you're saying if this deal moves forward, that PlayStation's going to die. PlayStation is the biggest profit center in Sony. Are you telling me my Sony shares are going to tank? Right? Because at some point you have to own that, right? You're making actual statements to a government entity. This isn't a joke anymore, right? So you can't just make these statements and say, well, it's not going to affect your bottom line. Your share price will start falling because people will have no confidence, right? That you're saying you will not sustain and survive if somehow Microsoft, or even to just buy them, forget the fact that they're not even taking Call of Duty away, just buy them. It is impossible that's what Sony said in their thing to the CMA. It is impossible for us to sustain unless Activision remains independent. Right? Those are their words, right? So you have to at some point now own that and put that out there to your shareholders to say, well, no, we were just lying, because even if they do buy them, we're going to be just fine, right? Because at some point you have to square these things, right? So all this crap is eventually going to come and bite them, right? You can't just put these stupid things out there and then not expect it to come right back at you and hit you in the ass, right? That is what's going to happen. So do I believe this? 100% I believe this. Who's going to tell their employees we're dead? We're doomed. Who's going to say that? You're never going to say that, right? Unless it actually happens to be true, but that's very unlikely, right? Even then you wouldn't say it. So he's absolutely going to say, no, they're nothing. Don't worry about it. We're really good. We're doing just fine. We have 50 million subscribers. They only have 20 something million subscribers, right? Even though they're telling the world they've leaked out the number of 29 million subscribers, and he's saying, oh, it's low 20s. Really? So which one is it, Jim? But yeah, none of this surprises me that they're doing that. Eventually you'll see some declarations within their shareholder, annual report to say, we're doing this well. This is how well we're doing, despite Microsoft's gains in market share, right? So either they'll say, nope, it's killing us, or no, it's not killing us. We're doing just fine. So they have to make one declaration one way or the other, right? We're seeing Microsoft's gaining in market share. That's good, right? That's a good thing. You want to have competition. They're gaining in market share with the current generation. Does that mean the end of Sony, right? If you look at the sales pattern, PS5 is selling better than the PS4, right? Yes. So it's not, they're not losing in any way. They're still making tons of money. They're still doing great. Yes, the entire gaming industry took a dip after COVID lockdowns went away, and people decided, hey, I can go outside now, and then not as much expenditure in gaming. But that was across the board, and Sony took a hit, as well as Microsoft, as well as everybody. Nintendo took a slight hit too, but they said it was something else. I don't know if you want to believe that or not, whatever. But so I don't see this being an issue. But yeah, he certainly just lied right about this being the end of the world. That somehow the cloud and Game Pass will make it so we can't make quality games. Like, come on, give me a break. You're full of it. Whatever. This doesn't, by the way, just hit the FTC. I know we keep looking at that one thing that came out with the FTC. The CMA made the same declaration, right? And they just took all the verbatim points from Sony, and their declaration now has some nice holes in it, right? But the interesting part is they haven't made their second phase announcement yet.
Yeah, it's coming so now, from what we understand.
Yeah, and so now they have this input, right? Because it's been made public by this article, right? And so they will know that this happened. They could, in good faith, ask Jim Ryan what he thinks, right? He doesn't have to in any way actually respond, right? They've made their government declaration, and they can stick to it. This is just an internal thing, right? So they can say whatever they want internally. So it's not what they've said to the government. They could ask, right? The CMA could ask, is this your stance now, or was it the original stance that you sent us, right? And they could just say nothing, right? But it is an input. It's an input now to the CMA, to the EC, right? That they could take this and say, well, gee, I wonder how much of this is true then. We took them at their word. How much of this is valid, right? Are they exaggerating other things too, right? And we all know that that's true, but that it will start putting a little bit of credibility back on the other side of the aisle to say, maybe we should listen to all those people telling us, all the other development studios, publishers, Microsoft and Activision, they're telling us this story and Sony's telling us that story, right? Should we just believe them or not?
Hargeet, to your point, if the whole or the majority of the FTC's mistrust of Microsoft comes from the idea, I'm not going to say it's a fact, but the idea that Microsoft told assured EU regulators that they had no incentive for making COD or for making ZeniMax games exclusive. And then they announced 2 exclusives afterwards. Again, we found out that shouldn't be that's not in fact the case.
Right.
But that's the reason the regulator said you shouldn't trust Microsoft, right? Now, if Jim Ryan is telling regulators, assuring regulators that there is that Microsoft owning Activision is bad for the industry, bad for gamers, and it would lead to foreclosure. But internally, he's saying a different thing. Should we trust anything he says? Just again, if we're going by what was told to regulators versus what actually happened.
Yeah.
Why,
yeah, I mean, that is a problem. That's a problem they have to face, right? So here's the thing, right? So whatever they say
did
internally,
that make sense? Because I feel like
no, I totally get what you're saying, right? Because the regulator has to take at face value what you said to me is the truth, right? That this is what you believe, right? And this is the truth. But if you're hearing other things from leaks, right? Then you can say, well, how much of this is true, right? Now, the regulator has no. I don't think they can go to Sony and say, well, we heard this, therefore we mandatorily want you to tell us what the truth is, because I don't think they have any standing to do that. However, if it ever came down to them saying, okay, pass this deal, we think Sony defrauded us. If that is the case, they can open an inquiry as a criminal investigation to say, hey, wait a minute, we want actual factual evidence. And if this was ever recorded in any document, and they say we're going to go in and we're going to subpoena you to, or get a warrant to go find out what you've done, right, and try to find the information, then they're in trouble, right? But I don't think that would affect this, except for the heads of the commissions that are trying to do the actual decisions, right? To say, well, I'm hearing this. How much faith am I going to have in what they've told us, right? They can take that into account for this deal. But I highly doubt Sony would put out a new statement saying that, oh, no, Game Pass doesn't matter to us. It's fine. Go ahead and disregard it. Because I think they've already made their legal case, and I think they're going to stick to it, right? So, but I don't know. Does that kind of answer what you're getting at, Everborn?
No. I'm just saying, shouldn't it throw everything into question?
Yeah.
If they're going to throw everything
heads of
into
the regulators,
question, Microsoft says, and say we shouldn't trust you, then by that logic and by this information, and I know there's someone in the audience right now that is saying, what's the source of this? It was Tom Henderson. That's not an official praise. The problem is the FTC has literally quoted rumors from Windows Central about what Microsoft will or won't do or has in the plans and that have not been announced. So if you can take quotes from Windows Central, you can take quotes from Tom Henderson.
Yes,
and
that's correct.
If you are using speculative, and this is nothing against Tom Henderson
analysis
or against Windows Central, but if we can use speculative video game articles to use that to somehow make your case, then let's use speculative articles and let's bring that into it. And this is why this whole thing is all messy to me. And again, I'm not saying anything about the FTC. All I am saying is if you're gonna use, you know what I'm saying, random blog posts, right? Then use them. And if you're gonna say you can't trust people based on the reasons you're saying you can't trust them, right? Then I think that should be a two-way street. Right?
Yeah,
you can feel however you want to feel about the FTC after that.
The FTC only has power until the point where they decide to sue, right? Because they hold that, hey, we want to get this deal done with you. Here's the things you need to give us, right? Once they decide to go past that, then it becomes part of a court process. And in a court process, a judge or a jury, in this case, it'll be a judge, is not going to sit there and say, you have innuendo, I'm going to take that as fact, right? I don't know where you got this information. Show me actual evidence, right? So things like that will not be admissible, right? And at least in a normal trial, that's what would happen, right? You'd say, well, where do you have proof of this? I want it to be stricken, right? Because it's baloney, right?
Yes.
So, and that's what, that'll get determined in a court, right? So the FTC, I'm not as worried about. They don't have a case. That's the problem, right? They don't have a case. On the other side of the pond, it's the CMA and the EC. They can, take this into consideration and say, all right, well, if that's a lie, then maybe the rest of this is also somewhat exaggerated, and we should take some of the other opinions we've gotten and consider it, right? And see whatever would work enough to allow the deal to pass, right? And so the CMA is the one that's the biggest question mark to me. I think the EC's already kind of decided, and they're just working the deal out, whatever concession they want. I don't know where the CMA is. I hope it's in the same boat. But the FTC thing, to your point, essentially this just is more ammunition, right? That, hey, this is a bunch of crap. Now, this is not admissible either, right?
Right.
Because it's not something that's actually publicly available. It's something that's a rumor based on somebody reporting this to a reporter, right? So unless the government went and actually, warrant, with a warrant went and got that information, and I doubt that's going to happen. They don't have a case there, right? So they can't take this information, but the case that Lina Khan put together is also kind of just pointlessly stupid.
And well, it's hogwash, to say the least. Yeah.
But and a lot of this is problematic from an FTC perspective, and I don't know if that's going to get resolved shortly or not, because it hampers growth in many areas, right? So a lot of companies start up with startup capital with the assumption that they can then take that tech and give it to somebody else and recoup that investment, right? And if that's not going to be allowed, which is what Lina has been doing, right? Because the companies that buy them are big, right? Because they have the capital, right? And so she's like, well, no, I don't want to allow big companies to buy anything. Well, but those companies couldn't sustain unless they did that. They need to be part of something so they can actually sustain themselves. This is common practice, right? So if that's not going to be allowed, and it's going to be a challenge every time, that's going to stop innovation, right? Because people will not invest their money because they're like, well, I don't want to be entangled in, a 5-year litigation process, just to get my money back, right? So this is a whole set of headaches that she's created, but we'll see how that plays out. And that's more of a Congress thing that they're going to have to figure this out.
Let me ask you a question, Hargi,
Yeah.
because I don't know the answer to this. Are you familiar with the Nuance deal where Microsoft recently acquired an AI company, a health company?
Yep.
When was that deal closed?
Oh gosh, was it last year or this year?
Well, that's going to be a big question, because I think it was closed after the Activision deal was announced. And the reason I bring that up is that deal wasn't stopped, but Microsoft doesn't play in that space at all. Was Lina Khan chair of the commission
April 9, 2021? Time? Yeah. Now understand, she didn't have any power because it was 2-2. They didn't have the third Democrat seat, right? And because it was 2-2, everything would just get deadlocked and it would just pass.
Okay. And by the way, the deal opened in 2021 April. It closed March 7th, 2022.
Okay. And this is just, I don't want anyone to accuse us of not being fair. If we're saying that they won't allow a big company like Microsoft to purchase anything, then they should not have allowed Nuance. But you are giving us a nuanced perspective on the fact that it was a timing thing. So, okay.
And for those who aren't sure on the timing on the pricing of it, it closed at $19.7 billion.
Yep.
Yeah, $20 billion.
Yeah.
Yes. $20 billion.
What's 300 million amongst friends?
Yeah.
Well, listen.
Yeah, but it is an interesting time, right? So we'll see if this continues or if there's enough pushback in the industry to Congress to say, you got to step in and do something, or to the Biden administration, hey, you got to step in and do something, right? So I don't know. We'll see how that keeps going. This isn't sustainable. The FTC is losing a lot of its staff, a lot of its senior staff because of this, because they're not credible anymore. it was very rare that you brought a challenge. The FTC usually was very, very good about what they would challenge, right? They would usually do concessions to make sure there was, the industry would be okay. And what they're doing here with just, well, no, we're just going to sue, is very weird, and they keep losing, and that's not good, right? For the FTC itself, it's not good. It takes away their credibility. They used to do a much better job, and now they're being looked at and laughed at. So that's, and people are leaving. They're like, they're frustrated. They're like, I don't want to be a part of this, right? It's not just the commissioners. There are many staffers that are leaving.
Yeah. No, they're bleeding. They're bleeding out.
Not good.
And that's the truth. And it's a bad look for the FTC. It's a bad look for Lena Khan for sure. And again, I've said this before, as someone that pays taxes, and I pay every year, folks. I don't want my tax-paying money going on frivolous lawsuits because of an ideology that's bathed in abuse of power, because that's exactly what is happening right in front of us. Wandering Dutch, let's get your opinion on this, brother. Jim Ryan out there talking out the side of his mouth once again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's typical of seeing one thing and doing another. But that's just the way that Jim Ryan is. We said this at the start, though. It's he's going to do anything to protect Sony. Yeah. That's his job too. At the end of the day, his job is to stick up for the company he's employed by. I don't think he actually believes anything that's in his, or at least should we say, coming out of his own mouth. I think he's just saying it to save face. But at the end of the day, I think Hargit was kind of on point before. It's a case of they will take note of some of the things that are being said, both in public and in private. And what they've said to the FTC is, "Oh no, Game Pass is such a detriment to the thingamby, and it's causing so many issues, and we can't compete, and it's such a struggle for blah blah blah." And then he's saying to his own employees, "Oh no, we're not even worried about Game Pass. It's absolutely fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we've got so many more subscribers than them. We're doing much better than them. It's failing. It's a failing service." So, and this is something that's going to be showing to the FTC and other regulators, because Microsoft aren't stupid. They'll say, "Oh, look at this. This is an email that's been sent around internally at Sony, and they're saying that Xbox and Game Pass is absolutely not a problem and not a concern." So they'll use it as ammunition. Of course they will. I think it's just, in some cases it's called, obviously it's foot in mouth. And I think Jim Ryan needs to be careful as to what he's saying, both in public and in person, because unfortunately there's people internally that are fed up of these bullshit just as much as everybody else. And I think even at Sony, there's going to be a few people there that love working for Sony, but don't want to work for a company that's going to continuously cause issues in the space that they love to work in. And Sony's becoming one of those companies that are going to be causing issues, and they're going to be causing friction between developers and friction between other game creators. And that's not something that game developers at Sony want. They just want to get on with their jobs and make games, not be caught up in some public war of words with another company where they've got friends that they work with or friends that they know. So yeah, I think they've got to really be careful, Sony, with the way that they say things. But absolutely, I do think that FTC, CMA, and the EU regulators, among many others, are also going to kind of take note of what's being said publicly and privately, and kind of use that as ammo for their decisions. I did see on Twitter as well, and on some news sites, that Japan had also given the go-ahead to the deal.
I was literally just going to say that. I just pulled up 3 reports. levelupgaming.com/EU is reporting that Japan has officially approved the ABK merger. That is a source originally came out of an Arabic website, and now it's starting to make the rounds. I have not seen any of our big report on it, that, at least the ones I use. I haven't seen VGC,
a Bloomberg, or a Windows Central,
Windows Central, Bloomberg. When they start reporting it, then we can go. But that is, of course, the rumor that has popped up today, that Japan has approve the deal. We'll know in the next few hours whether or not that is legitimate or not. And again, if they do, it's just more ammunition or more power for someone like the CMA and the EU to accept the concessions, potentially maybe even come up with one of their own, say, hey, listen, Game Pass is going to explode. You can't raise the price for 3 years. And I'm sure Microsoft would be like, yeah, that's fine. We just want the deal done. And again, folks, we will reiterate, people constantly DM me and ask if the EU and the UK, the CMA, approve it, what happens? Microsoft can then move forward with it. But what would have to happen from the FTC is they would have to do what's called an injunction to stop or to block them moving forward. And if in fact that does happen, what this would immediately do is go past Go and collect $200 because it would go right to a federal judge, as opposed to the appellate court that's under the FTC, which is what they're using, and they're currently being sued by. They're being sued by someone for that exact reason.
Axon Enterprises versus not Exxon. Axon,
no, not Exxon.
Enterprises.
Axon with an A. Yeah, AXON
versus FTC. It's in front of the Supreme Court right now. It has already been argued, and the Supreme Court usually releases decisions
in the
around
spring.
Summer. Yeah. So that's when you can expect to hear their ruling on it. But again, not getting political, if you look at who the Supreme Court is currently comprised of,
it's very business oriented. Let's just say that.
Yes. So
not to make assumptions. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We certainly will. Anything else you'd like to add, Wandering Dutch?
No, that's pretty much it. To be honest, I think it's just. I think he's just going to be careful with his words, because it's going to come back. It's going to come back to haunt him, and I don't just mean in the short term with regards to accepting the deal. I mean, with the way that he's actually going about his job, none of this guarantees that he's going to keep his job in the long run. Yes, he's making Sony money currently, but if he fails to do his job, and if he starts to lose faith from hierarchy internally in terms of management, etc., then he won't be there for very long. And Sony are not ones to save face either. They'll just cut ties and move on and get somebody else in.
I agree. I also think that the job losing situation is not going to only end at Sony. Potentially, it's going to end at the FTC. There are going to be some big moves made, and specifically at the chair.
And the reason I say in terms of potential job losses is because depending on how aggressive you get, not just with Microsoft, but you've got to think, if something were to happen and this deal didn't go through, and we're talking hierarchy at Activision, as well as all of the staff there who have voted for the deal to go through and wanted to go through for their benefits, for their livelihoods. Do you think Sony are really going to have any upper hand kind of conversations when it comes to making transactions with them going forward? No, it's going to absolutely put a taint on them, and that goes for other developers in the industry as well. They're going to have a look at the way that Sony are acting right now, or the way that Jim Ryan and his hierarchy is acting right now, and they're going to say, is this a company that we actually want to do business with going forward?
Yeah,
and it's something that's seriously going to affect them. So he's got to be careful with the way he's wording things, and he's got to be careful with the way he's acting right now. Yes, he's defending his business, but it could also really come back to haunt him if he doesn't do it correctly.
I agree. I think the scorched earth tactic that he has used from the beginning of this deal is the burning of bridges, as they say, are definitely going to come back to hurt Sony. And I think there are a lot of folks that may not admit this in the industry because they are the market leader, but they have been the bully in this industry for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And the way
it's not to say that you'll not get like third-party games on the console. It's not to say that you won't get Call of Duty on such and such, but there's going to be far few companies that want to do exclusivity agreements or timed agreements or give them any benefits going forward. It's just going to be a case of you're just going to get the cut and dry. Here's the game, and you get no more.
Yeah,
that's the case.
it just makes that argument so easy, right? Because you don't have
Yeah.
to do exclusivity. That Microsoft's happy with that. You just put
Yeah.
it in Game Pass. It's like you get
Yeah.
a bag, and you don't even have to take it exclusive. You can get the money from the other platforms too, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
a perfect situation for most developers.
Yeah, it is, and the amount of players and eyes and sales that come the way of Game Pass. A perfect example of High on Life is a shining star. They put it out there that it's one of the best single player games ever in Xbox Game Pass, and that's not coming from Microsoft. That's coming from Squanish Games. But real quick, two very generous super chats came in. Eternal Shaddai dropped a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Can Microsoft can talk to BioWare and try and make Jade Empire 2?" I would just, listen. I'm gonna be honest with you. I love that idea, bro. But I would so desperate to play that game again in current gen graphics. I would take an HD remake, like really go to town with the original one is god tier great. And I would love to see that come back in an HD version for sure. Drawn TJ drops an additional $5 super chat and says, "I see everyone asking if Game Pass is going to go up in price. It will go up. Will go up because of the family plan for $25 a month." Yeah, I think what people are asking, Drawn TJ, isn't so much of that, because if it goes up to 25, that's because you have 4 other people paying $5 a month. I think what people are concerned about is Microsoft raising it from $15 to maybe 18 or 20. I don't see that happening, at least not next year. I mean, everything has gone up, but again, when that happens, and if it happens or they announce it, I'm going to give them the smoke, because I don't think they should raise anything at this point. But Crispy, let's bring you in on the conversation. This report is pretty damning. Again, it is a singular report. Most people have reported on this. Jim Ryan, we all know Jim Ryan is lying. We've said it numerous times in jest, but now we're being serious. I think that he could potentially be in some hot water with regulators if they take this serious. And I think that there's enough here for question marks to be raised as to what his original claims were, as opposed to what he's saying internally. And I think Hargeet said it perfectly. If a regulator or a regulator entity like the FTC or the EU or the CMA felt that they were being bamboozled by Sony, and they're embarrassed publicly because they took Sony at their word, there could be repercussions. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, man. I said it earlier. Feel like Jim is Two-Face. And you know, the Dark Knight, everybody remembers Heath Ledger. But how about Two-Face? How about, you know, the love is Call of Duty. And now I can't stand that Call of Duty could be taken away. And then all of a sudden, I sit here and I say the exact opposite when it's convenient for me. Sounds like we believe in generations. Now, the one thing I question with this entire thing is I have heard it from multiple people. It sounds like it was an investor call, which technically could legally be binding. Okay, especially in the United States of
100%.
America.
Yep. If it is an investor call, you're right.
So here's my problem, and here's where, like, you know, we brought up the FTC, and the worst part of how the FTC is acting is that they're going against unions. Now, keep in mind, you know, going political just real quick, but Lena Khan was put in place by Democrats. Democrats are generally the people that side with unions, correct? Am I wrong? You know,
You're correct in saying so. Yeah.
Okay. My problem is that the way the FTC is acting, what they're acknowledging, you got to remember, Sony technically moved SIE to California. A lot of people forget that. Okay, they you know, subsidize their entire company to basically support their film division and their gaming division. Guess what? A lot of that is done in America. We're a gigantic country with a ton of different, little things. You can go to one part of America and be like, wow, this is totally different from, Florida or something like that. Like, you can live in one part, you can go and travel to North Dakota and be like, wow, this is totally different than what I thought. And it's one of those weird things where I say, I think it has to do with the unions. I really do. Because if you look at the top 5 companies, you got Apple, you got Google, you got Amazon, you got Microsoft. How dare Microsoft try to go to unions in big tech? Because guess what? You could say what you want about Amazon. They're technically retail in their own way. A lot of technology involved in what they do. And they completely fought having a union. I'm going to tell you right now, this lobbyist BS that I've seen my entire life, okay, being an independent and looking at both parties when they're in power and seeing people getting paid to do something that is clearly illogical and wrong for the consumer. And they just get away with it. And thank God for social media at times, because I say, am I crazy? Do I look at this and say, why are you even doing this? Why do you have the 2 largest unions in the entire country? And one of them is part of the world as well. And you're going to sit here and tell me that they're wrong? These are the workers and they're backing it. And parts of their entire union aren't even part of that. They're putting up lines. They're not developing code and doing developer stuff. This is what's weird about it. And that's where I go and I hope, and also there's a little politicalness there too, because the CMA, London Stock Exchange, you could say what you want, but $2 billion ain't nothing to shake your finger at. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like, you look at what they did, but you look at it and you say, well, Apple don't want unions. We all know that. They've said it multiple times. Amazon don't want unions. Google may not need unions, but at the same time, the influencers could form their own union. Just saying. These are things that they are thinking about, and everybody else is sitting here like, oh, that's just crazy. That's tinfoil. I feel like Everborn right now, because I'm looking at this and I'm going, they're literally just paying Lena Khan to fight a fight that they can't fight, because it's Microsoft and it's a big baddie as well. But guess what? They're trying to actually do the right thing. And everybody's like, nah, no, they're not. There's some kind of underlying thing. Oh, 10-year contract. No, it can't be. Oh, this and that. Like, oh, we want to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo, which hasn't happened in how long? You know what I mean?
Very long time. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're talking gaming here, people. We're not what a company can pay to keep something. Like, they think I spend $1 million, I pay Lena Khan, or I spend billions of dollars dealing with the unions. What do you think they're going to do? And that's where you go and say, you know what? It's conspiracy theory. I'm cool with it. You could tell me I'm crazy. I don't care. But I see a lot, like what the FTC said, what Lena Khan said on Twitter is absolutely ridiculous.
And this madness.
This is where all of a sudden you're starting to hear Jim Ryan reel it back. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing that Fallout 76 is going to go on their subscription service.
Yeah, in January, I think it is. Yeah, January 24th or something like that. Yeah,
he's reeling it back because they do have a primary area and EU, CMA, all that area, and they might have said, you know what? No, we're not down for this. The consumer needs to win, and this is logical. You know what? You're giving you your attention. All of a sudden, you're going to hear after they say something, and if it's bad or good, or it's in between, and it's kind of like null and void, you're going to hear Sony all of a sudden turn their back around and be like, no, we're good. We're fine. Because You know what? I don't think I mean, Minecraft has been everywhere forever. Okay. And don't get me wrong, like Starfield, there's going to be certain games, but that's exactly what Sony's been doing their entire time. I mean, yeah, we got MLB The Show over here. Big freaking deal to me. I'm not a baseball fan. I'm basketball, football all day. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I acknowledge the fact that people enjoy baseball. Hello World. Okay. And they've made a ton of money. I don't see Sony complaining about putting MLB The Show there. Did anybody see Sony complain? Did anybody see Sony say, "Oh, Game Pass doesn't work"? No. Now they're trying to, you know, go completely backwards and be like, "Oh, no, Game Pass doesn't matter." I mean, it's one of those things, dude. Like, I see, like I told you, the only lie I ever seen Phil say is high fidelity VR. That is the only lie I've ever seen.
I mean, he said there's something that they were going to invest in, and obviously something about the market scared him. So I mean, the word lie. I mean, people disappointed with VR, but the VR is.
I'm being simplistic, Boom. I mean, seriously, you know what I mean? Like I know plenty of people that were looking forward to that because they believe that Xbox could do it really good. And you know what? PSVR 2 might be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't think
$650, which is preposterous.
I don't think so. And also, you know, who says Xbox can come out with a new gaming console that is the same price with a VR headset involved or a third-party VR headset that's bundled in? I mean, these are the type of things. But at the same time, I just want them to come out with games that, you know, it might not be for me. I mean, I love my multiplayer. Nothing Sony showed me. I'm like, oh, I need this. I don't need God of War. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the big picture here, Crispy, is Jim Ryan's going to find himself in a bit of hot water. I think that the more and I said this, and I do want to bring in Asante because we're getting close to the end of the show, and I don't really want to go too far past 2 hours because people, you know, obviously it's still the holiday, but Asante, you know, the more that these things continue to happen, the more dirty laundry continue to come out. I said this multiple times that Sony's dirty laundry was going to be aired out for everyone to see what scumbags that they are. We already know what they do to the fans, how they rake us over the coals. They charge $10 for upgrade. They charge for crossplay. They raise the price of the console by $50, and they can do all of this unchallenged because they're the market bully. Besides, I don't even like to call them the market leader. They're the market bully. So when they say move, people say, "How far should I move, sir?" And that people are getting tired of it. And I think that this change that Microsoft is ultimately going to bring to gaming, but to big tech is a big deal. When you hear him downplaying during, and some people are saying it's not an investment meeting. I don't know what it is. I wasn't at the table, so I can't tell you. But if it is an investors meeting, it's there are notes. Someone took notes of this, and if those notes are used very similar to what the Cargeet said, there could be legal action against Sony, specifically Jim Ryan. What are your thoughts on this report from Windows Central?
I mean, honestly, this is why when specifically when I come on this show and when we talk about this, I always say, you know, I really don't care what Jim says. I don't even care what Phil Spencer says, because they will say what they need to say to accomplish the task at hand, whether it's true or it's less than true. It can't be a lie, out and out lie, because if you're able to prove that, they are screwed, right? So it has to be a finagling truth, a truth that they can wiggle their way out of, you know, even though they may not be sharing the entire truth, right? So when I hear Jim is saying this, I'm not surprised at all, right? And people are saying, "Oh, well, this is the gotcha moment." You know, he said A and now he's saying B. To that I say, Phil Harrison. People may not remember Phil Harrison. Phil Harrison said everything is fine, nothing to see here, a day before they close Stadia. It's what they do. They say what they need to say to accomplish the task at hand. You know, people didn't go, "Oh, Phil said it yesterday and now it's not true. Look what happened." yeah, when Phil Harrison says everything is fine, you should expect that the world about to cave in on you. He has been known as the gaming Grim Reaper. It is what it is. But the point, and I'll keep it short because everyone has said exactly what I would have said. The point is, it's not, to me, and most folks on here I can tell feel the same way. It's not necessarily, even though we spend a lot of time adjudicating and a lot of time picking apart the words that are said by this person or that person, it's not really about the people. You know, this person said this, that person said that, right? It's not about them, because they will lie and they'll obfuscate and they'll do whatever they need to make you think what they're saying is righteous. It's about the referees in this game.
Yes.
You know, are they paying attention? Are they seeing what's really being said? Are they digging through the BS to find where the truth of the matter is, right? That's been my ball game involvement in this since jump, right? I really don't care what Jim says. Jim will lie, or he will try and obfuscate in some way to make it sound like he's true, even though in the back room he's like, don't worry about it. Let me hit him with one more of these statements, right? That's clearly what happened here. I've used the analogy before that, hey, when you're watching a football game, a soccer game, and one of the team members grabs a knee, you don't get mad at the team member that grabbed the knee. Oh, and by the way, good job there, Boom. That took a while, but you figured that out. Good stuff. Good stuff. It took me a while to figure that one out myself. Yes, absolutely. You know, you don't get mad at somebody for grabbing a knee. If he's able to get that foul, hey, that's the way the game is played. You know, referee, open your eyes, right? That's why in most cases you see in these games, you'll see people yelling at the ref rather than yelling at the players, because you don't hate the player, baby. You hate the game. You expect the referee to be there to keep things righteous. And if he's not, it's not the fault of the player that he was able to get a freebie, right? And that's what Jim is betting on right now. I'm going to say whatever I can, whatever I need to do. Let's see if the referees are doing their job. If they're not, hey, we win one. If they are doing our job, they will slap our hands, right? So as everyone has already pointed out, you know, they've used these kind of reports based on Windows Central and other folks who are reputable, right? They've used them in their arguments in the past. So here's the question. Will they see this, and will they use this to go, hey, Jim, you know, Jimmy Bones Jones, we saw you saying what you were saying before, and now you're saying this. Which is it, right? Whether they do that or they don't, that may determine what we see moving forward as far as their posture. I don't necessarily say it's anything necessarily at fault with Jim. You know, as you guys have already correctly pointed out, this whole thing with the FTC, what do you call it? SIE is a useful idiot in this. I think Phil Everborn said that some time ago, and he's true. He's right. They don't necessarily want to support SIE. That was more the CMA EU posture. So it seemed based on their reporting, right? By and large, it looks like the FCC just needs big tech bad, and Sony's helping them fulfill that role. So they're just being, hey, they'll help us accomplish the task at hand. So we'll take whatever they give us, right? In my estimation, had Microsoft not been in the room and been offering $70 billion as a large example of big tech bad, they probably would have headed to Sony or any other company that decided to throw some billions at another company. It just so happens that, of course, Microsoft has the biggest bag. If it wasn't for Microsoft, what it would have been? Zynga, because they also did what, $17-18 billion right before this was announced. Yes. Right? So the idea that, they're following Jim's word, Jim is a useful fool. Jim is helping the FTC, presumably, try and sell their narrative. They're not doing a good job at it, because obviously, clearly that narrative is BS and they weren't smart enough to thread the needle better. So they're just letting Jim ride it out, but they don't really care what Jim has to say. Jim is just useful for them. And well, how useful we shall see, because clearly we're seeing that they're not that useful. They're not really making the case really matter, because even to us, the laymen's who don't spend a lot of time becoming word ninjas, and that's what I call lawyers, we don't spend our time doing that. Even we see the naked ridiculousness of it, right? So to me, and everyone else has already said this very, very aptly, it's about how the referees and what referees am I talking about? The CMA, the EU, the FTC to a lesser extent, because we already know what they're doing, right? It's about how they see these things, how they hear these things, and how they incorporate it into their decision-making process. It'll be super interesting to hear what they think about all this. But when I hear Jim say what they're saying here, I'm like, yeah, it tracks. It's about right. Right.
Yeah.
You know, Jim, just like I said about Phil Harrison, nothing to see here before the floor fell out on them. Right. So whatever they say is not necessarily, you know, to be believed or to be trusted. It is what it is. You know.
No, I mean, good stuff as always. Everyone, close us out, brother. Give us your opinion on Lion Jim Ryan.
Listen, man, he's saying what he has to say, just like Brad Smith is saying what he has to say. My only question is, again, where was this said? Is the source credible? I have no reason to, you know, mistrust Tom Henderson. I don't follow him really, but people say they trust him. But if this is if this is like a credible thing that he said, I do think you have to at least take this into account about how self-serving the comments were and how much of a credible threat to competition Microsoft owning Activision would be. I am not I believe Microsoft has the right of this. But you know, the FTC is going to do their job. But I do think if they're going to do their job, you know, I hope that, and I'm sure they're smarter than me, I hope that they are also taking into account that most of the people who have spoken about this publicly, apart from Sony, have spoken about it favorably.
Yeah.
And then when you consider that Sony has a personal vested interest in this not going their way, I hope their comments are weighted with that. Yeah, and if this turns out to be credible evidence of them saying actually Game Pass is not really a problem after just crying about it, right? Like, I see that as a problem. I hope that, you know, these highly paid, highly skilled people also see that as a problem. Now, one thing I do want to, just so that we have the context, someone in the DMs had just reached out to me in terms of, because again, I want us to be fair when we talk about these things, about Lena Khan losing all of her cases. I think she's brought 22 cases and she's won 15 of them. So she's lost 7. But as I understand it, those 7 are more recently, and because you know, I don't know, maybe that's because they're, you know, choosing more long shot cases. So I can't say. So
I mean, to your point, Everborn,
lest it not be said we didn't give that information to the audience.
To your point, real quick, Everborn, didn't they just get a huge landmark settlement out of
They
Epic?
Just got $500 million from Epic, right? Yeah. So $500 million. But again, each case is different. Having read their concerns. Now I understand that there could be knock-on effects of this deal, and I understand this deal does because of the size of it and the implications and the knock-on effects. I understand why it needs close scrutiny, but reading the reasoning behind the FTC's reason for bringing to the suit and the reasons that they deem it illegal, I don't buy it, right? And I've actually heard credible cases, right? If you guys follow Red Reddington on Twitter, he's made some credible cases for why this should be looked at, right? You know who hasn't made those cases that he made? The FTC. So based on the case that they brought, based on the description of why they believe this violates antitrust law, I don't buy it, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think this just speaks to that more. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, and I think we just got to let the process play out, because if Microsoft has the right of it, and I believe they do have the right of it, the judge will go and side with them, and I believe the CMA in a couple of weeks is also going to work something out with them. And I think the EU is going to follow there, and then it's going to be like dominoes, and then it's going to be down to letting either the administrative law judge decide this, which again, they literally, we can talk about how many cases they won, right? But they just threw out a case like this, right? And that is the I can't remember the name, but it's a company that was buying some blood tests. It's like a medical company, and the administrative law judge, their own administrative law judge, threw the case out. Why? Because the company was offering
concessions.
They were offering concessions to continue to make the blood screening tests available to their competitors, which is exactly what Microsoft is doing. So I feel confident about how Microsoft will deal with itself in court. I don't need to, say anything about Lena Khan. She's going to do what she's going to do. I don't think the case that they've described is strong, and it doesn't have a lot of numbers in it, right? So I'm not too worried about it. We'll see how it goes. But Jim,
you were talking about the administrative law judge throwing out a case against Australia. That was in, I think, what is it, February of this year? Yeah. No, April 2020.
I'm sorry.
Which one are you talking about? That was February 22.
No. That was another one they threw out. The administrative law judge have been throwing out several cases that
because the most recent one was Australia Group and Jules. They threw it out on February 24th, 2022. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, because the one that I saw was thrown out on September 21st.
Oh, so even later. Understood.
This is what I'm saying. There have been several cases that have gone to the administrative law judge, and they said, "Get this shit out of my face." Right?
Understood.
So trust the process, right? It's up to Lena Khan to prove that, and the FTC to prove that the deal is illegal. I saw a lot of attacking of her, not by anybody here, but I did see people using some really kind of saying some offensive things.
I mean, listen,
and I don't want us to do
I don't
that.
know.
I want us to,
no. We on this podcast, on everyone here that has a show, we do things with class. We do things with precision. Listen, I don't know Lena Khan. I don't like her. I don't dislike her. What I can say is I don't think she has a strong case, and I think that it's a frivolous lawsuit. I will say that. I think that she has a bully-like attitude. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that she is willing to throw a case into the wind and say, well, we tried, even though she knows she doesn't have a case, because ultimately what she's doing is wasting millions of taxpayer dollars. I won't stand for that. I have a voice, and I'm going to say something about it. And I think that if she
as continues, you should, right? And
yes,
and you've always been professional about it. And that's all I'm asking. So
no, absolutely, no, it's 100%. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
We have a little voice here, so I want to tell people this is not about Lena Khan. If we're going to attack her personally, don't do that. We can say we believe it's a weak case. We could just say it's a bullshit case if we want.
Yeah.
But just anybody who is making personal attacks to Lena Khan, don't do that. You can attack. That's the FTC.
Incorrect behavior. Yeah, no.
You can attack the process. You can say you believe that this whole thing is unconstitutional, because it wouldn't just be you saying that. But let's keep the harsh language off of the individuals who are just doing their jobs and trying to look out for competition. Now, they might be wrong on this one, and I think they're using a hatchet where they should be using a scalpel. But again, let's calm down with the personal attacks.
I've seen some things that are disappointing, for sure.
Yes, Lumina. That's
Lumina.
the one.
Yeah.
Judge said, "Get this shit the fuck out of my face."
Wow!
Don't waste my time.
Well, I don't have a beat button, ladies and gentlemen.
Ultimately, though, they can challenge it again, right? So the FTC can
we will see how Exxon FTC goes.
They got the FTC is they're fighting a lot of fronts right now, exactly. And what they're doing is ultimately stretching themselves thin, and ultimately, what's going to eventually happen, folks, is change needs to come the way of the FTC, because they are looking, at least in my opinion, as a tax-paying United States citizen, I have no confidence in that bureau whatsoever. I don't like the way that they're doing business, and has nothing to do with me being an Xbox, folks. This happens to do with the way they're doing business across the world and how they could logistically hurt and stagnate investment into different aspects of the world, because she has an ideology that I certainly do not agree with. I think it is a scorched earth mentality that she is touting. I don't think that she should be allowed to do what she's doing. I think ultimately the United States government is going to side with the people, and she's going to be removed from the chair, and rightfully so. Wasting millions of dollars and telling your opinion to the world that, well, we don't care that we are about concessions, that we'll just sue even if we don't have a strong case. That's preposterous at best, and I think a lot of people are getting tired of it. But listen, enough of of that shenanigans, folks. We've hit the 2-hour mark, or we're a little bit over it. I want to thank everyone. 500 plus people showed up today for Primetime Gaming. Folks, you got one more show, or at least I have one more show left in me before Mrs. Boom and I take a break. And then we come back strong in 2023. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are doing our 2022 year in gaming wrap up. We're going to be talking. I'm trying to get as many people as I can to swing by, take a 10 or 15 minute block, drop their bars, tell us about what they enjoyed about 2022, what was their favorite game, what was their biggest surprise, and of course, what their expectations are for 2023. I so far have, I think, 6 or 8 people. Some of the people that are on this panel now are going to swing by, and it's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a very chill, laid-back show, 2+ hours of a bunch of gamers and a bunch of podcasters coming and closing out 2022 in a big way. We hope to see you in the chat tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But let's get to the outros, and we'll start first with the birthday boy himself.
Before you do, please don't forget the super chat, sir.
Yes, that's right. I do have 2 more here. Highlander 001 drops not 1, but 2 $5 super chats. And the first one, he says, would it be okay with a price increase to say $20 if the deal for Activision closes and includes all Activision Blizzard games plus Ubisoft Plus? Yeah, see, then if you're adding that kind of value, then I don't argue, because Ubisoft Plus in itself is a monster deal. Not only do you get their games day and date like you would Xbox first party, but all of the DLC is included in that, and that's bonkers. So if you're telling me that I have to pay $20 to get all of that, I'm all in. But again, I'm not one for raising prices, but if you raise the value of something,
another tier.
Another tier, an option if you wanted. And of course, I would pick the highest tier. That's a good point, Crispy. He also says, after another $5 super chat, I see people going to developers that are unionized, as it would mean better pay and working condition. That scares Sony. I think that scares more than Sony. I think that scares Google, Amazon, and Apple, because I think ultimately what's going to happen, folks, is if Microsoft gets this deal done and they do stand back and say, you guys unionize, we're gonna take a neutral stance on this. We want people to have better pay and better working conditions. I think they're gonna make some changes in an industry that has been stagnant for decades, and I think that scares a lot of people. Certainly Sony for sure, because of what this is going to bring. But I love the fact that Microsoft is going to be the one laying the groundwork for unions in tech. I think that's incredibly important. And that's the human element that I love about Microsoft. And that's what I love about this particular deal. But Crispy Bomb, sell your brand, birthday boy. How and where can people reach out to you on social media? And more importantly, are you going to be on any other shows this week?
I might have to hop in tomorrow. I'm just saying, Boom.
You're welcome to pop in, brother. By all means, I'm dropping the link, and everyone that works with me on a regular basis, check your DMs. I'm dropping the link tomorrow. And again, if you only have 10 or 15 minutes, you let me know how much you could be, how long you could be there. We'll get you in. You drop your bars, you get out. But please continue.
Well, hopefully I have some gaming left in me, because I've been trying all day, and unfortunately. The damn internet, it's working for this great. I don't know why, but like even Twitter, I was like, is everybody else having a problem? Like, I wanted to say that, and then all of a sudden I got the little email from my provider, like, hey, we're having packet loss or some BS. I don't know. I really don't care. The one thing I do want to say, because it's my birthday, and I just, it's kind of irking me, is that Epic is rightfully so getting sued by the FTC. Okay. But anybody remember when Epic sued Apple? And Apple ain't getting no heat from the FTC when even the EU's like, dude, you can use a USB-C on everything else, but I have to have the lightning,
the
freaking
lightning
charger.
cord, which is dumb. I'm sorry. I don't like that at all.
I'm sorry. I've used both. I have an Apple. I have an iPhone. The USB-C is superior.
Yeah,
it
100%.
is amazing. It doesn't have the issues that. Why isn't the FTC suing Apple? That's. I'm sorry. I just had to say it. But it's at Chris Baum on Twitter. Chris Baum 28 Xbox Live. Maybe tomorrow, 12 p.m. Might show up on the end of year discussion. Might be there. We got 8 p.m. tomorrow. Next podcast, as long as there's a next podcast. And Retro Renegades Tuesday night, 7 p.m. I will be back there, and I'll be raring to go.
Nice.
See you then.
Yes. Can't wait. And shout out to Gaming Forte, one of the original founders of Primetime Gaming, a very good friend of the community, someone I consider an extended family member. Gaming Forte, love you, brother. I'll drop you a link tomorrow if you want to pop in and give us your biggest surprise, your best of 2022 and your expectations for 2023. He drops a $5 super chat and says, another year in the books. Glad to see the amazing growth of this channel over the years. Dude, that warms the heart. Thank you so much. He says, I love all of you and hope you have a great New Year's. And we love you too, brother. Thank you for the super chat. And of course, thank you for always being awesome. And obviously what you do to this within this community is epic. So thank you so much for that. Wandering Dutch, sell your brand, brother. What you got going on for the remainder of 2022? Do you have any shows left under the belt? And could you possibly pop by tomorrow?
Yeah, I could probably pop by tomorrow before I jump onto World of Gaming with Boxy.
Which is, they're having his show. What time is his show tomorrow?
It is 7 p.m. UK time, so I think that's 2 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
2 p.m. Eastern. But other than that,
we'll be done by then. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the midweek mix-up. I've already broke up. We broke up last week, I think it was. So we're back again next week for our first of 2023.
Nice.
But we ended on 100 episodes. We felt that was a good place to end it, not start 101. So we ended on 100 episodes. Of course, we had King David Day celebrating that. So it was an awesome show. But we're back again next week with a midweek mix-up podcast on Wednesday. So that'll be awesome.
Nice. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Love what you guys did, and 100 episodes and anything is massive. And what you guys do, just on the show itself is amazing. And of course, the incredible generosity that you guys did a couple of weeks prior to you getting sick with the charity stream of 24 hours was just epic. Me and Mrs. Boomstick were able to pop in and drop a nice donation because we love you guys and we love what you guys do. And I just think that you guys are a pinnacle part of the community, and just love the fact that you are still doing it after you nearly caught a screwing from YouTube. So it's good to see that you're still around, brother.
Almost 2,000, over 2,000. It was $2,300 raised this year.
I love it. I love it. That is fan-freaking-tastic. And we love these kind of things that you guys do. And we will continue supporting that. But Harky Chani, sell your brand, brother. Talk about Game On Daily. Gaz himself put out a great video the other day about Xbox. I watched it twice. It was so freaking good because, Gaz, I don't know who does the editing, but my God, it's really, really good what they do over there. I don't know if you're going to get a chance to pop in tomorrow for 10, 15 minutes. You let me know if you can. I'll send you the link via email. Sell your brand, brother. Talk about Game On Daily. A lot of people don't know about that. And you guys are close to 13K. You're at 12.7 right now.
Yep. Yeah, so GameOnDaily.com, YouTube.com/GameOnDaily. Yeah, Gaz put out a video that was somewhat critical of where Xbox is right now,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fair. I mean, they, like even the stuff that they're in right now, that they don't have all these exclusives. They're talking about how they're, much lower in the competition levels than their competitors with, with Sony and with Nintendo. And like that's fine, that's great. And you're crying all afoul of all this stuff, but that doesn't help us, the gamers, and we weren't the ones who
Indeed.
did this, right?
Yeah.
It was you, and that's rubbed some people the wrong way. It is what it is, right? But it's fair. It's fair criticism. Right? It's they're taking away our hype. They haven't shown anything. To be fair, neither has Sony, right? And we know they have a whole bunch of hammers to drop, including Silent Hill 2 that Konami's like, well, I don't care. You want to say silent? I don't want to say silent. So they told us about it, right? But we know those hammers are coming. We know they have a whole bunch of like exclusives that they've worked out. And both companies need to like hype us up, and they're just silent, and that sucks, right? So he brought the little heat there, and I think that's fair and should be brought. But either way, I'm not on any social media, but I'm on Xbox. H Johnny's my gamer tag. The $20 thing, I would say that they should, instead of doing Ubisoft Plus and make it $20, get rid of Gold and keep it at 15. Add Ubisoft Plus as the enticement to keep the $15 tier, the ultimate tier. Add Ubisoft Plus and get rid of Gold, because that's just not needed anymore. So that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would also put a lot of pressure on Sony if they got rid of Gold. Oh my God, it would stop the industry in its tracks, because it would then people would be asking the question, Sony, when are you going to give us free to play? What's happening?
Right. Exactly. So, but that's what's going on.
I love it, brother. Kay Asante, sell your brand, brother. Talk about where they can check out Gaming Circle podcast. You're dropping I think another episode, a recorded episode with someone. I don't know if you put it out there and who it's going to be. Talk about it.
Yeah, no, it's actually funny that you guys bring up the aforementioned Gaz and all the heat he has been getting in this community, because he actually agreed to do a recorded episode with us, and it will be premiering this Saturday, 10 a.m. Our last official episode of the year.
That this past Saturday.
This coming this Saturday.
I don't like him.
We recorded it a couple days ago, last week, I should say, and it's coming out this Saturday. Nice. On the Gaming Circle podcast. So check the feed. It will premiere on the YouTube channel, and it'll be available on all your favorite podcasting applications, your Apple and your Spotify and all the various podcasting apps. It'll be available right when it releases at 10 a.m. But no, it was a very interesting conversation about this exact topic. And we took a page from Mr. BoomStick's book. We're calling it messaging and marketing. What they've said to us and what we've gotten so far and how we should feel about it, right? And of course, that was the crux of Gaz's issue that got a lot of the community after him, and we wanted to give him a platform to speak on it, without all the hate and all the slander, except for our own slander that we tossed in there. So it was a great show. I hope people get to check it out this Saturday. But yes, TKO Asante, K Asante, everywhere, anywhere you want to find me, PlayStation, Xbox, all those places. I am a glutton for punishment, so I am still on social media, but who knows how long that will last. Crispy, by the way.
No, I was saying that Gaz recently changed his name to Ponymaster 6969.
There you go. You go. He's upping the ante. So him and the Mag
Where's
need to get together. Absolutely.
Where's Mag with his
absolutely. So I was gonna say, Crispy, you saying that Twitter was down? Yeah, it may be your ISP, but it's also Twitter. I keep getting issues as well. They actually just reported that Twitter is having issues because they're trying to kill it. So it is what it is. But anyway, catch us this Saturday, Gaming Circle podcast, last episode of the year. And we'll be back. I think we'll be back the second week in January to continue it once again. We're going to take a bit of a break between the first week and all that, but we will of course be back, and we're doing very interesting things on the channel. Hopefully we'll be doing other things on the internet as well. So you'll be privy to that as it comes up. But we appreciate everybody who's continued to support us this year. Myself, Everborn, I'll let him expound on that. But definitely, we really appreciate all the support and all the folks that keep watching the stuff and keep making the show and our channel bigger and bigger and keeping the lights on, as it were. So we appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Happy New Year if we haven't talked, and we'll see you guys in 2023 for sure.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Everborn Saga. Sell the brand, brother. Talk about the Everborn Saga. What kind of a year you're going to have in 2023?
Oh my God, Boom.
Talk about it.
Everborn Saga in 2023 might be better than Xbox in 2023. We are working on. Listen, we have more Everborn books coming out in 2023 than Microsoft has first-party exclusives coming out in 2023. That's how big of a year. Well, I mean, let's hope Microsoft delivers. But
that bar is kind of low there, but
I didn't say 2022. I said 2023. But on top of what Everborn is doing, and go to everbornsaga.com, we got a sale that's getting ready to come up where you get all the books for $49 because we want to get everybody caught up on the story. And then on Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, Twitter, TikTok, all that, Everborn Saga. I do want to just take a moment. If this is the last time I talk to you guys this year, I am so hyped for 2023, like as a gamer, also as a businessman, but as a gamer, right? Like if we just talk about the things that we are getting next year, that's on top of Redfall, Starfield, Motorsport, maybe Hellblade. We're also talking about Lies of P, Flintlock, Stalker 2.
Which has their thing dropping tomorrow, their new trailer.
Right. Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, like the Resident Evil remake. It just keeps going and going and going. And on the Sony side, we might get, well, they say we're going to get Spider-Man 2 next year. Like this is peak gaming, right? I'm super excited about the upcoming year, and that's before we get to the fact that Microsoft is going to win this case and bring home Activision, and then they can move on to the real prize, which is Sega.
Yeah.
So Sega by the end of the year, Crytek comes home. We get Ryse 2 announced. This is speculation time now.
Year couldn't end without him mentioning Sega, right?
You knew it. You knew it. Come on. It's the last show for the year. Look. All I'm saying is this, 2023 is going to be so great. Everybody, like, I feel like we should all be happy. Like, we're gamers. This is golden age stuff, right? Now it sounds like Pong Soul.
Golden age of gaming.
But shout out to Pong Soul and Steel Rain. But all I'm saying is thank you, everybody, for putting up with my crap all year. And I can't wait to get back to gaming next year. I'm playing High on Life now, getting ready to start Ragnarok after that.
Everborn, I think we should start selling tinfoil hats with the game.
Listen, it's getting ready to be in the merch store at Everborn. You can buy it with the Charge Them More t-shirt.
Absolutely.
I love it.
The point is, everybody, 2023 is going to be so like exciting, right? And it's way bigger than the ABK deal. But once that is done in 2023, you're going to see a lot more aggressive moves happening, and you're going to see Sony actually be forced to like really compete and not sit back and rest on their past successes. So you're going to see Sony being the best Sony. You'll probably see a new Switch. We're going to get Zelda next year, Tears of the Kingdom, right? Everybody's going to have to compete. So like, I'm just super excited, and I can't wait to see you guys on the other side.
Yeah, nice, brother. Well, that's a great way to close out this show. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Primetime Gaming, the last Primetime Gaming of 2022. Hopefully you enjoyed it enough to hit the like button. If you're new, consider subscribing to the channel. And again, don't forget tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the last show of the year. It's going to be our year in review. We're going to be talking about what our biggest surprises are, what games we enjoyed the most, and of course, we're talking about our expectations for 2023. It's going to be a huge cast of characters swinging through, so stop by, hang out for 2 hours, and we'll see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As of for this show, I want to say a big thank you to all of the super chats that come in. Those allow for us to grow the channel, both in programs and equipment, and of course, the big giveaways. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dear old dad taught me when we were kids. And it made me the better man that I am today. He used to say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next year on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.